right? Something really good, okay? Something really good to do when we are monitoring, guys, is to take notes. Okay, so take notes, so check what is happening. Okay, what the students are using, saying, what errors they are making, so you can take notes of that, and while monitoring, you can do it. Okay, right? What is not monitoring? Pay attention. Monitoring is not the time for prepare the next step of the lesson. Okay, it's not the time to go to the desk and prepare the material, because students can feel like isolated. Oh, well, the teacher doesn't care about what I'm doing, or if I have a question, the student is away, right? So when you monitor, don't race, don't hurry, just walk. Okay, so you can give time to the students in case they have a question to approach, to ask you. Okay, don't drag your feet. Okay, because that distracts students. Okay, and here, as you can see, guys, don't get close enough to the students. Okay, sometimes the students, even when they are participating or they are in the active activity, okay, actively participating, they might feel like threatened by when you are next to them. So keep a distance to let them participate, let them continue the activity. Okay? Now, monitoring, remember, it's a very important phase in your class because it will give you information about how to proceed, and is really important for the students' learning. Okay? Very good. I will continue with the third point to cover here. Pay attention. Sensitive to students' needs. This is something really, really, really important, guys. Okay, remember, you are teachers, but you need to consider always your students' needs in your planning, in your lessons, in your teaching. Okay, what is sensitive to students' needs? Pay attention to this phrase from Diane Larson. It says, the essence of good teaching is learning to watch your students, learning to read your students' interests, their attention, their engagement, knowing when to move on and when to stay. That is being sensitive to your students' needs. Why is it really important? Because you need to take your students' learning as primary, as basic, as fundamental part of your teaching. Okay? Remember, that's why the students are in front of you. Because they want to learn. They want to learn, and if they don't learn, it's pointless to be in front of the class. Okay? Right? What is sensitive? Okay, it says here, they said that the essence of good teaching, guys, is probably the most important and persuasive skill for a teacher to acquire. Maybe it's one of the most difficult that nobody can teach you, because sensitivity cannot be really considered a skill. Okay, it's not a skill that you can receive a training in the school, right? Now, what is being sensitive to students' needs? It's perceiving that a student needs help and stopping to help them. Okay, being sensitive to students' needs is an act of human empathy. Okay, as I mentioned here, pay attention. There is nothing more important in any class that the students learn. Remember that. There is nothing more important in any class that the students learn. If learning is impeded for any reason, guys, it's your responsibility to notice that there is a problem and to respond accordingly. Okay, even if that means deviating from your planned lesson. There is nothing more important that students learn. Remember that. Okay, right? And as I said here, the timing and pace in any class should be determined not by your lesson, not by the book, by the needs that your students have. Okay, they need more speaking practice, spend time. They need more listening practice, do it. They need more vocabulary, provide it. Okay, they need to learn every time they leave your class. They need to be conscious that they learn something. Okay, and you need to be aware of that. What is another problem with when we are teaching, guys? Okay, this is something that I want you to observe. Pay attention to this picture. This is a recent picture I took from a class. Do you understand what the explanation was about? Of course not. Okay, and many times as teachers, we do this. And of course, the students get confused. Okay, now the board can be your best ally in class if you use it correctly, or it can be the student's worst nightmare if you don't use it correctly. Okay, a general rule of thumb, guys, is use the board as often as it facilitates the learning. If it's not necessary, don't use it. Okay, if it doesn't facilitate the learning. Okay, that's really, really important. Okay, now when you have your board, well, I have my board here. It's not my classroom, but I have it here. You should have only two specific areas. As you can see here, okay, the first area is where you have the permanent information. What is the permanent information? The information about new structures, the vocabulary that you are teaching, the patterns that you are explaining. Okay, so this is something that it should be in every moment in the class because the students need to observe it for their performance. Okay, and what is the second area? This area over here that it says erasable information. What is that one? Scores from a competition when you have a game. Okay, examples that to set the scene. Okay, probably a word that somebody wasn't sure about, you can put it there. Okay, so the students can identify which information is important, which is not important. Okay, now something that is really important, guys, pay attention here. I have these three examples. This is an example, this is an example, this is an example. So you need to practice your handwriting size. It shouldn't be too big, it shouldn't be too small, so the students cannot see it. You need to calibrate the size of your handwriting. So students from any part of the classroom can see clearly. Okay, right? Now, the next information is about what to do and what not to do when you use the board. Please pay attention. These are some recommendations. When you use the board, keep eye contact with the students. Okay, read while you're writing. Okay, guys, Maria is doing their homework. Read and write at the same time. So the students can pay attention to the structure and to the pronunciation. Write as quickly as possible. Okay? Write short text. Inform the students. Tell the students what is important to copy and what is not important to copy. Remember, when you are in front of the board, if you put a line, the students will copy that line in their notebooks. Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. So just tell them, copy this. This is important. Don't copy this. It's not relevant. Give sufficient time for the students to copy, of course. Now that we are online, guys, we can ask them, take a screenshot, copy this, so they can do it. Okay? What is not recommendable to do, guys? Pay attention. Give back to the students. I will check. Pay attention. Guys, Don't do that. Don't give back to your students because this is a time where you can lose your class. You can lose their attention. They can start doing something else. Okay? Don't write with no instructions. Remember, when you write on the board, it's because it's something important for the class. Don't spend too much time there. Okay? Write as quickly as possible. Don't overcrowd the board because students might get confused. And of course, don't erase permanent information without telling the students. Okay? This is really some recommendations that are going to be helpful for you. Okay? Now, let's go for the next part. Something that teachers use to give a class are the things that you see here on the board. Visual aids. Visual aids, remember, are pictures that help learners, that help you in class to understand or help you to convey the meaning of a word of a situation. Okay, or they help you to set the scene in an activity. When you prepare a visual aid, when you select the material, guys, you need to consider these things. Of course, you can create your material. You can use pictures. You can use newspaper cutout. You can use photograph. Okay, whatever you prefer. But the recommendation is that they should be small enough to handle. Of course, you are not going to use a map, a poster that is difficult, but also it shouldn't be small, too small that you can not identify. Like this teacher. Pay attention to the teacher. The teacher is presenting a picture. Do you think everybody in the class can see it? No. So everybody needs to see your visual aid. Okay? Now, when you sometimes, guys, if you work in a school, they provide you with the material. But if you need to prepare your own material, just be sure it looks professional. Remember, you are the teacher, you are the professional in the class. So your material needs to look professional. Okay? Don't use material that doesn't have these characteristics. You will see in class how the students get involved easier with the proper material. I'm sorry. Okay? I continue with the next point. The students are already in class, the students are in the activity, you have the visual aids, you are monitoring, but sometimes the students don't remember the information. So part of the next step here, the next recommendation is to know how to cue effectively. What is cueing? Okay, cueing is prompting. It's helping the students thinking on ideas, remembering words, remembering phrases. Okay, that is cueing, and you need to do it effectively. Okay, how? Giving a visual cue, giving a verbal prompt. For example, when the students are struggling to remember a word, like competition, you can say only, okay, you have a com, so they can finish the word. They can look for the word. Okay, right? Remember, it's not about giving on unfinished sentences every time. It's just guiding. Okay, right? Sometimes when we just show a cue, a card, the students can think about the idea. Could. What did you say? Oh, I could visit my family. Okay, so that is giving a good a cueing effectively. Okay, right now, something really important for you is that when you plan your classes, guys, you need to plan when to use your cues and how to use your cues. Okay, it's perfect if you consider them in your planning. Okay, now in this activity, I will use this cue. In this activity, I will have this cue for the students. Okay, it's better to be prepared. Okay, because that in that way you stimulate the independent creation of ideas from students. Okay, you promote their learning, you foster their language acquisition. Okay, very good. Let's go to the next part. Pay attention. The next point that you need to consider when teaching is this: eliciting. Sometimes many teachers, because I've seen many teachers provide information. Okay, we will talk, we will give, this is. It's much better, guys, when you elicit information from students, okay? Because that activates the prior knowledge, okay? So how do we do it? We can ask students what they see in the picture, okay? What they know about a topic, so we have idea where to start, okay? So many times we can consider starting talking about, I don't know, cooking, and it turns that they are chefs, right? You know what I mean? So they are cooking. So it's better when you elicit, get information, check the students' knowledge about the topic, and from there you can start, right? Okay. So you stimulate the formulation of ideas, and this involves students in the class because they have an active role, okay, and they are enthusiastic about participating, right? You can check the student's level when you elicit. Oh, this guy is understanding, this guy is using the information correctly. So it's a way also of monitoring, checking the students' level. Okay, very good. Now, we know that the students understood the instructions. We know that we are doing, we know that we are eliciting correctly. We have the proper visual aids. So now we need to check comprehension. I am sure that many of you, as me, many times we only make this question. Do you understand me? Yes. Let's continue. But no, it's not that simple. Okay? When we check comprehension, students' comprehension, guys, is something that is part of being sensitive to their students' needs. Okay? We need to check comprehension every time, at every step of our class. Okay? After giving directions, when you present a new language, at the end of the lesson, okay? So you can check that the students understand. How do we do that? We can just ask him, hey, does everybody understand? Yes. Can anyone give me a sentence using this word? Yes. You check that the students are understanding. Or in this case, you can ask students to demonstrate their understanding, like paraphrasing in other words. For example, before you have an activity, you can ask Juan, hey Juan, can you show me what you're going to do? In that way, you can see that he understood the activity. Okay? What is a recommendation? Personal recommendation, guys. Pay attention. In your class, you know, when you know your students, you know who has a good level, who is on the level, who's above level, who's under level. Normally, try to understand the first person that you ask, it could be above level. Second person on level, and third person under level. Right? So you can check that everybody understood the activity. If the person on the level understands the activity, of course, on level, above level, perfectly understood. Okay? Now, remember, many times students won't tell you they don't understand. Okay? I tell my students, I don't read minds. Okay? I don't read minds. You need to speak. But also, guys, something important that you need to learn, practice in class is read your students' faces. Okay? When you see a student with a 33 face, you need to explain again. What is a 33 face, Marco? That face that you are making. Okay? In this picture that you have here, who's the guy with the 33 faces? Of course, the guy with the square shirt. We can see that he didn't understand the instruction. So we need to check comprehension again. We need to explain the information so he can understand and do the activity properly. Okay, I hope you are taking notes, guys. I hope you are taking screenshots so you can consider this in your next class. Okay, now another important point for when giving a class is this: error correction. Error correction. Okay, remember, guys, students are learning a new language. They have no idea how to pronounce, how to say, how to express their ideas correctly. It's normal that they make mistakes. It's useful that they make mistakes. And you should expect those mistakes. Because in that way, you will know what is the current level of your students, where your students are. Okay? Now, that's why it's very important that you as a teacher promote, encourage students to speak, to participate, okay, to produce, even if they make it, if they say it incorrectly. That is good, because that means that they are trying. Remember, this is important. Don't worry about mistakes, guys. That is a proof that you are trying, that you are learning, that you are in the process. Okay? I always tell my students, of course, you are starting learning English. Let's say in course 1. It's normal, it's natural that you have a lot of mistakes. Don't worry. That would be difficult if you were in the level 20 and you are still saying, my teacher Marco are very intelligent. You know what I mean? There are errors that are normal, that are expected. Okay, so don't get scared, don't get frustrated, guys, if your students make constantly those things, those errors. Okay, just don't embarrass students. Pay attention, don't put them on the spot. That is really, really important. Okay, nobody likes to be on the spot. Okay, and a student, neither students like. Okay, now here, when the errors happen in your class, guys, you need to consider 2 things. The first thing is to pay attention. That's why it's important, guys, monitoring. You need to consider, you need to be aware when an error has happened. There is an error. And number 2, you need to decide if it's necessary to correct it and how you are going to correct it. Okay, those are the things that you need to consider when you detect an error in your student's performance. Okay, now here we have some ideas. Pay attention. Depending of the purpose of your activity, okay, you need to decide if you correct or not the error. For example, if the purpose of your activity is to promote fluency, don't correct the error right away. Take notes, write it on the board. Okay, because what we are promoting is fluency. If you interrupt that student, he might get frustrated, like, you stop his fluency, you stop his communication, and he might not participate the next time. Okay, now when the purpose of the activity is accuracy, okay, of course, you should correct the error, okay, because we need to avoid the repetition, because we are looking for accuracy, right? Now, decided if you correct or not correct the error, guys, pay attention, will depend in if the error interferes in the communication or not. Does it affect the communication? Is it about fluency or is it about accuracy? So you correct or not correct the error, okay? Sometimes, guys, remember, sometimes when you are in class, you need to ignore some errors. Why? Because, for example, if you are teaching a basic level and the student says something like this, yes, teacher, I have, present perfect, I have went to Disneyland. I have went to Disneyland. You are teaching basic level. We consider that present perfect is in a higher level. Don't correct the error because it's about the student's knowledge. Okay, right? So don't pay attention. Probably in short, okay, you can tell the student, okay, it's not I have went, it's I have gone, I have been, right? But it's not an error that you need to pay attention too much, right? Now, pay attention. We said that we have accuracy and fluency. When talking about oral correction, guys, pay attention. The students are in the speaking activity. Okay, so you notice the error. What is the recommendation? What is the recommendation? That the correction should come from you, right? But it's more productive, guys, pay attention, if you elicit self-correction or peer correction. Because you involve students and you don't put on the spot that student. Okay? Another suggestion is like a worried look to the student. Okay? Like for example, I'm sorry. So the student can notice that he made a mistake, that there is an error in his idea. Right? Another idea for making a student aware of those things is mirror the error. For example, when the student says, teacher, yesterday I go to the mall with my son. Of course, you identify the error and you can do this. Okay, Juanito, you go to the mall yesterday? You go to the mall yesterday with your family? Many times the students self-correct. They understand that there is an error. Oh, no, teacher, I went. So that is sufficient. Okay, and it's a really cool way to make that correction. Okay, or also when you make this mirror correction, there is always someone that says the correct expression, so the student can understand. Oh yes, I went, and there is not threatening opportunity for the students to get correct. Okay, right? That's why it's important, guys, the monitoring. So you can take notes. If you are in a speaking activity, you can listen, take notes, or write it on the board. And at the end of the activity, you can say, okay, guys, pay attention. I listen these things. Is that correct? What the problem is here? So everybody can help you to make the corrections. And nobody is in the spot. Nobody knows who did it, right? Students needs sensitive to students. Okay, now pay attention. When the activity is about writing, okay, here we have this. Pay attention. Many times the students, when they produce their text, of course, they expect your feedback. They expect your correction. Okay, right? So that is a good idea. Okay, for higher student level, they can self-correct. Okay, guys, pay attention. This is not correct. Check find the error, review it. Probably you can ask, okay, exchange words, review it, and make the corrections with a higher level student. Okay, that is something that you can do. Now, with the less proficiency classes, of course, basic students, you need to do it. You need to do it. Okay, so you can highlight. Okay, you can underline the mistakes. Okay, and you can tell the students. Okay, here is a problem spelling. There is a incorrect structure, singular, plural. So you can provide that feedback. You can make the correction. Okay, now it's really important when you give these corrections, of course, to tell the students to check, analyze, and understand why that is a mistake. Why is that an error? I always tell my students, don't trust the teacher. Why is that incorrect? Just because the teacher said? No, analyze. So they can analyze, oh yes, teacher, it's because it's she. So the correct word is her. Do you understand? So they are thinking in their mistake, they are thinking in the correct option. Okay? And they are learning. And they are not on the spot. Yes? Okay, very good. Remember, guys, that in this case, the next activity that we are going to do is grouping students. Okay, how to group students? Of course, everybody, we have a lot of activities and we need to group students. What is grouping students? Different ways of organize students for working in class, depending on your activity. Depending on the activity is the kind of grouping that you're going to decide, that you're going to assign in class. Okay, right? Here we have some ideas. Pay attention. Depending on your activity, you can group, you can use this form. We can use the total class because it's teacher's focus. Okay, this happens when we introduce new material, new structures, when we are analyzing errors, okay, right? And it should be used maximum 5 minutes. So you don't lose your students' attention. Now, when we're talking about individual work, this is the silent period where when the students internalize information, when they notice new languages, new structures, when they figure out how to answer the exercises. Okay, for example, this is an important activity, individual work, when we are playing a listening, when we are having a listening activity. Okay, now, when we talk about the whole group, of course, as it mentions here, it's required the students' involvement. Okay, for example, we can get personal information from students when you are eliciting, okay, right? When we have an energizer in class, you need the whole group to work, and it's very participative, very physical activity in the class, so your students don't get bored. Okay, talking about small groups, when you work in pairs, in trios, okay, right? That is something that helps students to get confidence. Okay, when you put them to work in pairs and trios, to speak, to solve exercises, it's an opportunity for them to get confidence. Okay, and be open to make questions to participate. Okay, remember, many times we don't like to participate when everybody is paying attention in the class. We better participate when we are 2, 3 only, because we have shy students. Okay, and you need to identify what is the best grouping that works for your students. Okay, right? Now, the things, of course, having things, you can use them when you have a drill, when you have a competition, when you are playing to get some points, okay, to practice a structure. 2 teams, ladies, boys, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 groups, okay? That is a really nice way to have an active participation from students and to deliver the information, right? Now, the last point, guys, we are almost finishing. The last point of these ideas is how to provide feedback, appropriate and effective feedback. Remember that, guys, what is that? What is giving feedback? At the end of your activity, at the end of your class, at the end of your course, the students expect information from their performance. Teacher, how did I did it? How did I do it? Sorry. Was I correct? Okay. They expect information from you. They expect feedback from you. Okay, right? Now, as you can remember, guys, we are, yes, we learned this in the school, but also we learned this in front of the class. We have 2 kinds of feedback. The objective feedback, that is the student's result from a test, 6, a 7, a 10, a score in a test. Okay, or it can be subjective. Your personal opinion, your point of view from students' performance. Okay, what is the perfect feedback? When you combine the 2. Remember, sometimes students get really nervous in an assessment. That student can get a 5. But in class, that student was incredible. Wow, man, I cannot believe it. What happened? He got nervous, okay, and he didn't understand the activity, he didn't read, he forgot, he shocked, he freaked. The best feedback is when you combine the 2 sides, the objective and the subjective. Okay, so the students can notice that you pay attention to them, that you care about their learning. Okay, now when we're giving subjective feedback, remember, we try to validate and express appreciation for the effort. Okay, the effort that the students made. Okay, but of course, not always we receive the results that we are expecting. So we need to be clear with the students. Okay, now it's really important, guys. Pay attention. Some recommendations. Don't give only positive feedback. Yes, you are great. Yes, you are incredible. Keep working. You are doing it great. No, you need to give constructive criticism to students. They need to know where they are, what they need, what is required to increase their level. Okay, remember that the students appreciate an honest feedback. Okay, and of course they are going to believe your words, because in their minds, who's better to give feedback than you? Nobody is better qualified than you, my teacher. So if the teacher says that I am good, I believe. If the teacher says that I'm not good enough, I believe it. So you need to give the proper feedback. You need to give honest feedback. What is the student doing well and what is required to improve? Okay, now if you need to give negative feedback, guys, okay, pay attention. This is something that you can do, the sandwich method. Okay, what is the sandwich method? There is something to improve. So if you say something good, something to improve, something good. Okay, so the student doesn't feel like I'm bad. Okay, yes, there are some positive points, but you need to improve this. Okay, feedback is part of, it's crucial part in the students' learning. Okay, some students, guys, I'm telling you my experience, some students might stop learning because they didn't get sufficient feedback or correct feedback from the teacher. And it's not because they have problems with their language, it's because they didn't know if they were increasing their language, if they were good, if they were doing bad, if they need something to improve. They didn't receive the feedback. So provide correct feedback. Okay, now these are the 11 points, guys, that you can do in your class to increase your performance in front of the students, to promote their learning, okay, and to increase the students' confidence. Okay, remember, you need to care about the students, okay, because at the end we want students like this, happy students, students that learn, students that tell you, teacher, I went to Disneyland and I asked for a hamburger without using translator. Okay, now a recommendation for you guys, okay, is love what you do, love your teaching, always learn how to give better classes. How can I give better class to my students? And the most important, guys, self-evaluate every day. At the end of your class, reflect. What can I improve? What I need to do better next time? What I did correctly? Okay? And as this says, Henry Brooks Adams says, a teacher affects eternity. You guys, you can never tell where your influence stops. I have a student 10 years ago that I met, and he said, teacher, I had this situation because of my English. Thank you. I said, wow, that's really great that you achieved that with your English. Okay, so guys, remember, you are a person to follow from your students. Okay, be an example for your students. Okay, well, guys, that is all from my part. Thank you very much for everybody for paying attention, for being connected. Okay, I hope you really find this information useful in your class. Okay, there are some ideas that I really wanted to know before teaching, before I was in front of a class. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Okay, and I hope we can see you soon when this pandemic is over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marco. Thank you so much for this wonderful and very, very useful conference that you gave us. Of course, it is very useful for us as teachers to know all of these aspects. Your presentation was very complete. Thank you so much. Now I want to, can you please stop sharing so I can share something?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to start sharing. Just give me a second. Marco, in the name of Escuela de Lenguas, la Universidad Autónoma de Chiapas, Escuela de Lenguas Campus Tapachula, wants to give you this diploma for your participation in giving a conference in Homecoming 2020. Congratulations, Marco. Thank you so much for participating in our Homecoming 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marco. Okay, thank you so much. And students, there's going to be another conference at 11 o'clock. I'll see you in the next Zoom meeting. Thank you.